Amid a global economic crisis, the world's eyes were on London. The most powerful leaders on the planet in one place at one time, trying to solve an almighty problem. Major protests were planned during the G20 summit, but nobody expected anyone to die. Outside the Bank of England, the protesters are long gone, but this story is refusing to go away. An avalanche of complaints about the response to the G20 demonstrations has prompted questions about police tactics. The man in the blue on the right of screen is Ian Tomlinson. He wasn't protesting, but became caught in the police ring. These now famous images show him being struck by a policeman whose ID number is hidden. He crashes to the ground, but walks away. Minutes later, he collapsed and died. A third autopsy is now taking place to determine the cause of death. Here, a man is struck aggressively by a police officer at the height of the demonstration. The protesters have been hemmed in throughout the afternoon, with police pushing in gradually and tightening the ring. The tactic is known as kettling.
It's a tactic that, in its own way, effectively reduces damage and violence. It might be a bit rigid and a bit crude because you're containing people who probably are exercising their lawful right to demonstrate. But I think that's a price that the authorities are prepared to pay.
But even its advocates admit kettling is by its very nature indiscriminate. Makes no distinction between protester and innocent bystander.
It's not a violent protest, but you know, when they storm in, you can't get out of the way, and when they're behind you and in front of you, you know, they didn't want us to get away.
Rob Walker is a school teacher. He, along with 30 others, became trapped in this alleyway. Police lines were at either end. Eventually, he was violently removed.
It's my belief that it's the police's brief to protect us and respect legitimate protest. They certainly weren't doing that, weren't doing either of those things. So yeah, it was scary. More a shock that we were not being allowed to do what in my mind was lawful.
Just about every image of the G20 demonstration shows the huge number of cameras. Journalists, police and protesters alike, all capturing the moment. Police have often used footage as evidence against protesters. Photographer Guy Smallman says this time it's the protesters mounting the case against police.
Police have overtly begun to film anyone who attends a protest, whether they're breaking the law or not. So a reaction to that has now been, protesters have now been pointing their own cameras at the police, and obviously we've seen the results with the Ian Tomlinson case at the G20.
At the very least, police here will be refining their tactics. And when it comes to kettling, a full review is already underway. It will determine if the practice is either appropriate or proportionate. Hamish Macdonald, Al Jazeera, London.